Hey guys, Craig here with 3D Resin Solutions. If you're unfamiliar with us, we manufacture custom 3D printing resin for industry and avocation. Now, being in this industry, we receive a lot of frequently asked questions, particularly as it pertains to safety. For example, in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about inhalation hazards and fumes, and can you become sensitized to the material simply by smelling it or being around it? We're going to talk about that. We're going to discuss the nuances involved. Before we get started, I do want to say that the views and opinions in this video are my own, and they represent my experience in formulation and compounding throughout my career. They do not necessarily represent the thoughts and opinions of 3D Resin Solutions. So to get started here and to have a better idea of the hazards that we're dealing with mixtures and chemicals, in this case 3D photopolymer, we need to discuss a little bit about the GHS system, or the Globally Harmonized System for the Classification and Labeling of Chemicals. Now, this is a United Nations document that attempts to bring everybody on the same page when it comes to creating safety data sheets, classifying the mixtures that they make, and then of course passing along that data to the consumers, or B2B, or whatever the case may be. The GHS system leaves a lot up to what it calls the competent authority. So that's going to be different from country to country. In the United States, where we manufacture our products, we will be beholden to OSHA and the EPA, and then in other countries, of course, they'll have their own agencies. The GHS system works largely by creating decision logics that we can use to categorize the mixtures that we make based on the available data of the raw material. For example, if you have a category 1 corrosive raw material, then if you add more than 5% of that material into your final good, then you need to carry on that category 1 corrosive labeling to your mixture. If you have less than 5%, or 1 to 5%, then you can go with the category 2, or in other words, it's more favorable or less hazardous. If you have less than 1% of a corrosive material, category 1, then it's de minimis. You don't have to mention it at all. So that decision logic is how we create our safety data sheets and how we give our information to our customers. So you can see how, depending on who's creating the safety data sheets, you might not be getting all the information, or you might be getting the information that they feel is necessary, and then they're leaving this out. So it's important that you trust and know who you're getting your safety information from. So pertaining to inhalation hazards, the GHS system handles it in a few different ways, in 3 different categories. The first category is acute toxicity, oral, dermal, or inhalation. So that's one category. So acute toxicity in those 3 categories. And then you have sensitization, which is inhalation sensitizer and skin sensitizer. And then you have STOT, which is specific target organ toxicity. And of course, you can specifically target the lungs, for example. So that's an inhalation hazard as well. So let's take a look at an example safety data sheet and see how these things might look when it comes to the raw materials that we're actually dealing with here. So here we have an actual raw material that we use. This is a monomer diluent, and this is the safety data sheet, section 2, from our vendors. This is the information they provide us, so we can then provide you with the necessary safety information. You'll notice on here we have skin irritation category 2, eye irritation category 2, skin sensitization category 1, and STOT-SC category 3. Again, that's specific target organ toxicity, single exposure. You might also see RE, which is repeated exposure, category 3. So basically what this means is it may cause respiratory irritation. What you might notice is what you don't see on here is it's not listed or labeled as an acute toxicity inhalation hazard, and it's not labeled as a sensitization, an inhalation sensitizer. So GHS chapter 3.4 has some definitions here. Respiratory sensitizer refers to a hypersensitivity of the airways occurring after inhalation of a substance or mixture, and skin sensitization refers to an allergic response occurred during the skin contact with a substance or a mixture. Sensitization includes 2 phases. The first phase is induction of the specialized immunological memory in the individual by exposure to an allergen. The second phase is elicitation, i.e. production of a cell-mediated or antibody-mediated allergic response by exposure of a sensitized individual to an allergen. To sum up what we just went over, and to address the title of the video, which is Can Resin Fumes Cause Sensitization? The first thing we need to know is, did you read the safety data sheet, and is the material classified as a inhalation sensitizer? All 3D photopolymer is going to be considered a skin sensitizer. I don't care if you're working with eco resins or whatever else. It's a skin sensitizer category 1, which means you get it on your skin and you'll have issues. We'll talk about that in just a second. But to address inhalation, if it's not categorized, if the material you're working with is not categorized as an inhalation hazard category 1, 2, or 3, then it is extremely unlikely that you are going to actually become allergic simply by being in the room. It's extremely unlikely that you're going to break out in a rash or hives simply by being in the room, unless you're predisposed to having those issues. Some people are allergic to peanuts, right? However, because we're dealing with STOTs with regards to lungs and inhalations and potential irritants, then if you mishandle 3D photopolymer, meaning you let it get into your skin by not wearing gloves and not wearing proper PPE and not washing up properly after you handle the photopolymer, then you can eventually become sensitized to it. You can eventually become allergic to it. Once you are allergic to it, then simply by being in a room, you can absolutely break out in hives and rashes. If you do not handle the 3D photopolymer properly with gloves and you let it get on your skin and you let it seep in to your bloodstream, then you may never be able to handle the material again or even be around it again without breaking out into a rash. Wear your proper PPE, keep the raw material off your skin. If you do get it on your skin, there's no reason to panic. Stop what you're doing, remove as much of it from your skin using a paper towel or cloth as possible before you go to the sink because you don't want to smear it around, right? So you want to remove as much as possible from the skin. Then you want to go wash up with plenty of soap and water. Do not use isopropyl alcohol to remove photopolymer from your skin. That's a myth out there. You really shouldn't do it. It actually opens up the pores worse and can allow sensitization to happen a lot quicker. So if you've heard that, don't do it. Soap and water, plenty of soap and water, wash up good. That's how you want to get rid of it. Also, you want to avoid being in the sun with that area that was contaminated until it's very well washed up because, of course, it's UV reactive material, so you want to avoid sunlight. All right? And that's it. Once you're well washed up, you should be fine. If you have any problems, go see a doctor. If your clothes get contaminated, remove them. Those are now garbage. Sorry. And remember, if you ever have any questions or concerns or comments, you can always just contact us. We're at 3drs.com. If you ever want to have another frequently asked questions video made to ask something that you're concerned about or worried about and you want a manufacturer's point of view on it, feel free to comment down below or shoot us an email. Maybe we can make something up. I appreciate you watching the video. Make it a great day.